very simple and concise. And Brian Jennings, who represents all of the industry, American Coalition of Ethanol.
Well, Senator Thune, first I want to say thank you, as everyone else has. We benefit from the extraordinary leadership that you bring to bear on this issue every day in Washington. We have over 50 new members of Congress, several new United States senators, and a new administration. And so to have the leadership, the steady leadership of people like Senator Thune in Congress cannot be overstated. So first of all, I want to reinforce the thank you. Second, let me underscore that the theory of indirect land use change is just that. It's an ideology. It's not a science-driven it's not a science-driven exercise. It's not backed by empirical data. This is the idea that somehow in the future, using more corn for ethanol here in the United States is going to cause the sort of earth-shattering land use changes that would cause someone halfway around the world to tear down a forest or plow a grassland. And as has been pointed out by others, that it's not supported by the facts. It's predicted to happen because of computer models. Historically, the data would indicate that land use changes are not driven by that, and in fact deforestation, as has been pointed out, is on the decline in the Amazon, not on the rise. Even the authors of some of these models that are used to sort of predict indirect effects and indirect land use will tell you that these models are prepared for discussion purposes only, and they did not intend for EPA nor the California Air Resources Board to use these models to determine policy. They're for discussion purposes only, not for determining policy. Now, EPA came out with a proposed rule last week that's 1,000 pages long, and it sort of dictates the carbon intensity of biofuels vis-a-vis petroleum. A couple important things to point out. Number one, they found the direct life cycle greenhouse gas emissions from biofuels are 61% better than that of petroleum. Very important point, 61% better. Even when you factor in the theory of indirect land use, it's found that corn ethanol is 16% better than petroleum, but lower than an arbitrary 20% number that they set forth in the law that we have to meet. Now, they grandfathered in most of the existing corn ethanol plants, and so that's good, but if Jeff Broin or others want to expand upon an existing plant or build a new plant, they would be disqualified unless they did some things to change the carbon intensity of that fuel. And so we've got to fix this. Senator Thune's legislation does exactly what we need it to do. And if we're even going to look at indirect effects, it's got to be an apples-to-apples exercise. Today, EPA and CARB are making very extreme assumptions about the carbon intensity of biofuels, and at the same time, they're assuming there are no indirect effects from petroleum. And as you pointed out, that defies common sense, and it's not good public policy making, frankly, to set up different rules. Now, there are two issues that are really being overlooked here when it comes to this. Number one, the assumption is that corn yields are fixed. And any corn farmer in this room can tell you that corn yields increase. Even a modest increase ensures that we don't need to expand the land base in order to expand the size of the corn crop. Number two, ethanol producers produce distiller's grain. Distiller's grain replaces the need for some corn and soybean meal in a feed ration, which enables us not to expand the crop base around the world. And so I don't know if EPA doesn't understand that or they're ignoring it. But either way, we've got to fix this, and Senator Thune's legislation is exactly the right remedy. I'm glad to see that there's bipartisan support for it. And I probably took way too much time, so I'll apologize. But I want to thank you for organizing this event and for everything you do. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. That was well put also, and I think there are a lot of factors that even if they were going to do this, that they're not taking into consideration. And as you said, DDGs is one of those too. I don't think that either by benign neglect or intention that it's been left off the table. But I do think that if you're going to have a level playing field, then you ought to also figure out all the indirect impacts of petroleum and look at the carbon footprint in its totality, and I think you come to a very different conclusion. For some reason they have singled out biofuels this way, and it's really unfortunate because if anything right now we want to see more biofuel production, not less. It has done, as I said, wonders, I think, so far to help lessen that dependence we have on foreign sources of energy, and we ought to be looking for ways to encourage more production, more use. I'm hoping that we'll be able to get some favorable rulings on increasing the blends, which is hopefully going to be ruled on here very soon. But the problem with this particular proposal is you send very conflicting signals to the industry. And we need to have clear-cut policy that promotes biofuel production in this country, because we know for a fact that it does reduce, relative to gasoline, the emissions into the atmosphere, that it is a cleaner, greener burning fuel. And regrettably, this policy takes us in the opposite direction of discouraging production of biofuels in this country. So the bill is designed to make sure this doesn't happen, and I hope that we will get action on it. I hope that there'll be broad bipartisan support for it, but part of that starts with making sure that people across this country and people here in our state of South Dakota understand what the implications of this decision are and what it means for the future of South Dakota's ethanol industry and all the jobs and all the economic impact that comes with that. So I want to thank you all for being here today, and with that, we'll open up to comments or questions. Anybody else around the table, or any